January 7th, 2025. Please join me for a moment of meditation, followed by the Pledge of the Allegiance to the American flag. You will hear 3 taps of the gavel when it is time to stand. Please join me in a moment of meditation now.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk of Council, Mrs. Amy Skank, please call the attendance roll.
Mr. Lawley.
Present.
Mrs. Carter. Here. Mr. West.
Here.
Mr. Horn.
Here.
Mayor Slamka.
Here. The first item on the agenda this evening is citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments this evening?
I've not received any, no.
Are there any in the audience? None. Okay, we will skip that. The next item on the agenda is council comments. We will begin to my left with Councilmember Lawley, followed by Councilmember Carter, and then to my right with Councilmember West, followed by Councilmember Horn. I will speak last. Mr. Lawley?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my shout out for this council meeting is to our city employees who have worked hard over the last couple days to make Middletown the better place that I've talked about frequently. Specifically, the Public Works, the street department personnel who have probably spent the last 48 hours without much sleep. I personally thank each one of you guys and girls very, very much, because it's, you know, it's tough to be out there, no snow plows, and we get a lot of people. I know not everybody's happy, but we just have to be patient, and they've done a great job. And to our police and fire crews, I can tell you on a personal level that it's not easy to carry a cot over 8 inches of snow up and down icy steps, and that's what they've been doing over the last 48 hours. The police officers also, our health department nurses making their visits. So once again, you know, even though things weren't perfect over the last 48 hours, I can't say thank you enough to the street department, the snowplow drivers, our police and fire personnel, and our health department, and anybody else who had to come into work through, you know, our people down at the wastewater treatment plant. They still had to come in, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lawley. Mrs. Carter?
I follow behind Paul in congratulating our employees of the city. And I also like to wish everyone Happy New Year, and hoping that we all come up with a resolution that we will be able to keep. I would say goal, and my goal is to be a better person to people that are in my atmosphere, and that's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Mr. West?
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to echo the previous comments. Thank all the city employees for their hard work over the last couple days. I can't remember the last time we were on a level 2 snow emergency here in Butler County, but tremendous job. I was out quite a bit the last couple days and saw the plow trucks and public safety workers out there. And Happy New Year. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Horn?
Again, just want to thank the Public Works. And they worked it smart. I noticed what they went through first. Before the snow started, they treated the roads. And then when it started to snow, instead of to continue taking old snow and letting new snow fall, they went and then they stopped, and then they came back, and they worked it smart instead of hard. A lot of times we have to understand our first responders and our public works, they don't get to work that Monday through Friday at times. They are working for us 24/7. I want to talk just briefly of some things I plan to work on this year. We had a lot of excellent candidates that are citizens in our city that applied for the position Mr. Lawley holds. A lot of young folks that are living in our city and folks that are very interested in doing public work. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my contacts that I have and I'm going to reach out to them and see how they'd like to volunteer, be it with events, helping Jerry Lewis, or helping even within our boards, because we need more and more folks to apply and to do this civic duty, and that's one thing I'm going to work on this year. To you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. I would like to also officially welcome Ms. Combs to her new role as acting city manager. Thank you so much for your work. I would like to also acknowledge the good work that has been done clearing our roads. We have many streets in Middletown, and the trucks are out en masse doing their work, and I'm very appreciative. A couple things, just got this in. Walmart Wellness Day is this Saturday, January 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This community event provides free health screenings, free and low-cost immunizations, and the opportunity to talk with a local Walmart pharmacist at more than 4,600 stores nationwide. I'm assuming also maybe ours. During the event, affordable immunizations like flu, HPV, tetanus, hepatitis, and more will be available. And customers can also participate in free health screenings for blood pressure and more. Insurance is not required to receive a COVID-19 vaccination, which is available at no cost, and other vaccines are covered under the most major insurance plans. For more information, please visit walmart.com/wellnesshub. Shalom, which stands for Serving the Homeless with Alternate Lodging of Middletown, will host the homeless for 9 weeks this winter. Those in need of housing are transported at 5 p.m. every day from the Shalom office, which is located in the lower level of the First United Methodist Church at 120 South Broad Street, the host church. All guests are allowed to shower, dine, rest, and share fellowship in a safe and warm environment, and at approximately 8 a.m. each day, the guests are transported back to the church. Shalom shelter services run from January 5th through March 2nd of this year. Midpoint Library Middletown Makers Space is now open for use by library card holders. Called Innovation Point Middletown, this maker space is filled with the tools and technology to help you create, make, and innovate. This is a do-it-yourself learning center where patrons of any experience level gain practical skills through hands-on learning, and it is uniquely designed and resourced based on our community needs, interests, and staff capabilities. Innovation Point fulfills Midpoint Library's mission of enriching our community through access and experience. The equipment you will find at Innovation Point in Middletown are a photography station, sound recording equipment, a button maker and die cutter, photo printing, digital conversion equipment, a large format vinyl printer, and a laminator. There are some materials available for purchase at the library. To find out more or to make an appointment online, please visit midpointlibrary.org. Very Merry Middletown continues with Holiday Hoopla until January 20th. Come to enjoy the beautiful lights, ice skating, hot drinks, and warming igloos. For more information, please visit holidayhoopla.org. This Thursday, January 9th, Midpoint Library Middletown will be holding a Midpoint Artisans class. For ages 18 and up, at all skill levels, learn how to paint with acrylics and have fun. You'll learn basic techniques and how to mix and use colors. The class begins at 6 p.m. and ends at 7:30 p.m. For more information, please visit midpointlibrary.org. There is a community blood drive on Monday, January 13th at Midpoint Library Middletown's parking lot. Save a life by giving blood on the Solvita mobile coach. Appointments are encouraged. Visit donortime.com or call 937-461-3220 for an appointment. Use sponsor ID number 1702. It's time to redesign the Downtown Veterans banners. Our Hometown Hero Banner program opens January 15th and closes March 1st. If you have a banner that went up in 2024, please email Jerry Lewis to schedule an appointment for pickup. New designs are being created for 2025. For more information, please email Jerry Lewis at jerryl@cityofmiddletown.org or call her at 513-425-7727, and that's Jerry, J-E-R-I. On Thursday, January 16th, learn about the 10 common warning signs of Alzheimer's and what to watch for in yourself and others, as well as benefits of early detection and diagnosis with the Alzheimer's Association. The meeting is located at the Midpoint Library Middletown boardroom and runs from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Walk with the Doc is always the third Saturday every month. Make new friends while engaging in the 4 health tenets of Walk with the Doc: education, exercise, socialization, and being outside in nature. The next walk is Saturday, January 18th at Rosa Parks Elementary School parking lot, beginning promptly at 9 a.m. Bundle up, wear some boots, and we hope to see you there. For more information, please visit walkwiththedoc.org/Middletown-Ohio. As a reminder, the City of Middletown accepts applications for our boards and commissions throughout the year, so if there is something that you have an interest in and you wish to give back to your city in this way, please do submit your application. To learn more, please visit the city's website at cityofmiddletown.org. And lastly, as always, there are many ways to get involved with your community and give back. Join a board or committee, run for office, apply for a job with the city, volunteer at your hospital, pick up trash in your neighborhood or park, plant a garden in your yard, smile at a neighbor, find joy and satisfaction for a job well done, whatever work you do, or just have a positive and giving attitude. Find something that you can do regularly and give back. We are all connected and we are all in this together. The care of our city is an adventure in which we all get to share. That is all for me tonight, and this concludes our council comments. The next item on the agenda is city manager reports. Acting City Manager Ms. Ashley Combs, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight we have 3 presentations under the City Manager's report. The first will be the Midpoint Library System Levy presentation. So I will welcome them down to give their presentation now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Travis Bouts, and I'm the Executive Director of Midpoint Library. I have with me today Emily Foote, our Fiscal Officer. For example, in our case, you guys are our taxing authority. You appoint our library trustees. Our neighbor to our west, Lane Libraries, they are a school district library, so the Hamilton City School Board appoints their trustees. I don't know how that was decided. I think historically, that may have a case. In this case, in the city of Middletown in 1910, City Council passed a resolution creating a public library, which was used to apply for funds from Andrew Carnegie to build the Carnegie Library that's on Curtis Street. I think that's probably history, how that evolved into you guys are now still our taxing authority. But we are, once we are, again, the trustees are appointed, we're self-governing after that. Just to illustrate, I thought Nancy Nix had a really good map from the last levy campaign to illustrate how the libraries are broken down in Butler County. Purple on this map is the Lane Library System, and the green is Midpoint. We do have some overflow into Warren County. Ironically or interestingly enough, you can tell how the city of Middletown on this map actually goes further east than what the green does, and in Monroe it kind of goes southeast. Those are annexations that happened after our boundaries were created by the state. They were created by the state in 1982. Don't ask me why they don't evolve or they're not dynamic. They don't expand with the municipal boundaries, but that's how it is. And it is by precinct. It's very precise. There is no double taxing. So if you're in Warren County and you're in the green parcels there, you are in part of Midpoint Service District. If there's a Warren County, like a Mason Library or a Franklin Springboro Library levy, they would not be taxed on both. So the auditors have it very precise down to the parcel. And we do limit our services to those that are within those parcels. So I'll get to a little bit more on that. So Atrium Hospital, for example, is not part of our district. Even though it's in the city of Middletown, it's outside of our service district because it was locked into those boundaries from 1982. But anyone in this green, though, for purposes of the levy, they are voting on that levy. So even though you're our taxing authority, this was a question last time, City of Middletown is not paying for all of the services within our district. You're one government agency out of all of that green that votes on the levy and then is assessed the tax if it's passed. A little bit about us. Again, out of the 251 libraries, we rank in the top 15 on pretty much every category. The big one being total circulation. We have over 2 million items borrowed each year. The one that we don't do very well in is computer use or Wi-Fi use. Historically, I think that most of our residents have their own devices, and they may use us for other purposes, such as our program attendance. We have, 14th overall in number of programs offered and program attendance. A program can be any of the ones that you gave us a shout out for, thank you. Or it could be like our story times. It could be events that we have off-site where we do presentations to schools or daycares or even to nursing homes where members might be homebound or unable to come to the library. In terms of door counts, we're 12th overall, and that's looking at all library systems, including the big metros, the Cincinnati, the Cleveland, Columbus. So 12th overall, we can be proud of the number of patrons that come and visit our doors, through our doors every year. Summer reading participation, we rank really high in terms of that. We also spend, on average, top 13 for dollars spent on materials and collections. So the tax dollars that we collect, it is spent, a good portion of that is spent on actually the purpose that we're here for, and that's gathering materials for customers to use. I threw in a few did you knows, because it seems like we're always having, things like, oh, I didn't know you did this. So most people don't know that we are a passport acceptance agency for the Department of State. If you want to apply for a passport, come on into the library. We do that by appointment. We walk you through all the process and all the paperwork that goes with that. We do not do the photos, though, so that's one thing you'd have to do separate from what we do. We do have a case manager that we work with Sunshine Counseling Agencies. They provide social work type services to residents for free. So if somebody's having trouble paying their rent, finding housing, needing help with any other kind of social service agency, we have a case manager that can, by appointment, offer assistance. We offer free domestic faxing services. A lot of folks that still use faxing, they're doing it for purposes that would make them not necessarily have excess revenue to apply to that. So it's for unemployment benefits, Social Security, other type of social services. So we offer free faxing. Voter registration and polling site at 2 of our locations. We offer free deliveries of materials to homebound residents. So in looking at those parcels, we know if somebody calls us and say, I can't get to the library, we have staff that go out and make those deliveries, but we do limit it to those that are in that service district. So we can tell by their address if they qualify for that. We have free streaming digital content, music, movies, audiobooks, and ebooks. Everybody loves Audible, I know, but I use it myself sometimes if I can't find something I want in our collection. But don't pay for it if you don't have to. Check us out first. It's free, it's easy to use, and often a lot of that stuff is available offline. So in airplane mode, you're going on a plane ride soon, download some movies to watch on the plane. They're free through our digital content service. We work with the Department of Agriculture during the summer months, and we offer free lunches to students who, during the summer months that might qualify for free and reduced lunch. We do 5 days a week, summer lunch service. We also recently become the Butler County Administrative Agent for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library of Ohio. The state pays for half of that service. We have to do fundraising for the other half, and we are also the fiduciary agent for that. The state requires one fiduciary agent for the county. So previously that was Butler County United Way, and they stepped aside, so we stepped in to fill that role. We have regular staff that go out to daycare, schools, medical facilities, nursing homes. We have our mobile vehicle fleet that goes to all of these locations. We have staff that will go in and do early literacy presentations to daycares on the regular, all in the name of promoting literacy. And then the mayor was kind enough to mention our makerspace. We just opened the second one in Middletown. It does, in terms of the 2 makerspaces that we have, it does have unique services such as a podcast and recording studio. So if you really want to record your own podcast, it's an amazing room that you can use to do that. We have the vinyl printing, the laser engraving, sewing machines, all kinds of stuff. So if you really want to, for the new year, make something exciting, you can consider stopping in Midpoint Library, either Westchester or Middletown, where we have those 2 locations, and staff will help you get started. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily, who's going to talk about the levy specifically.
Hello. If you weren't sure, the library has 2 main funding sources. The first portion is the public library fund that consists of 2/3 of our funding. The second third is our local levy that we go out to the taxpayers for. Currently, we have a 0.75 mil 5-year term levy. We are wanting to go to the taxpayers to replace that same exact levy of the same millage amount. This was first approved in 2010, and the voters had renewed the 0.75 mil levy in 2015 and 2020. We are here today asking the City of Middletown Council as our taxing authority to pass forward our governance to go to the electors for the replacement levy in 2025. This would restore the library back to 2010 funding levels. A lot of folks don't realize, but when you go out on the ballot and you have a millage levy and you continue to renew that levy, even though it says it's a 0.75 mil levy, it actually decreases in valuation over time. So even though the property tax valuations of all the homes in the area have increased, the library does not see an increase as those valuations go up. So currently, I had reached out to the Butler County Auditor's Office, and our valuation is actually 0.45 mil in comparison to that 0.75 mil. So the library is working with almost half the amount of funding that they did back in 2010. So we are asking the taxpayers to restore us back to our 2010 funding levels to keep our doors open and keep Midpoint strong. I'll bring it back to Travis.
With that, we'll take any questions you might have.
Any questions from council? Comments? No, I think you've explained it very well. I was curious, like maybe, like what's a real world example that our residents could think of as far as like what they'd be looking at as far as finances, right, with the levy. But I think you explained it pretty well, unless you have something to speak
I
to.
did have that number.
I think it's $26 per 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the,
It's currently 14, so it is an increase, but those were based on 2010 property valuations, which is locked in over time. So even though everything has gone up in that time, your levy values is locked in with property values, and so effectively the millage shrinks over time.
I have a question. So what is different from what was on the ballot in November that got defeated to what's going to be on the ballot in May?
That's a good question. We had, because it was a continuing, we have 6 locations, physical branches. 5 are open to the public. The 6th one has our bookmobile and our other vehicles in it. We were looking at maintenance cost over a longer term time period. So in this case, it's a 5-year snapshot instead of a continuation. So we were able to sharpen our pencil based on what the voters said and just look at a 5-year projection and only look at those facilities needs that are most pressing in that 5-year period instead of what would it cost over the long term to keep those facilities operational.
So this next one is just for 5 years?
Correct.
Not indefinitely?
Correct. That was a message we heard in our feedback that a lot of voters didn't like the continuing, and I get it. We were trying to save the voter from levy fatigue because it seems like 5 years goes fast, believe it or not. You know, it seems like just yesterday we were out on the campaign trail for the one that we passed in 2020, but the residents want an end date on those, and so we listened, and that's what we're looking at as a 5-year levy this time.
Additionally, we also decreased the millage rate from 1.25.
I'm sorry, could you speak into the microphone just so we can have it on record?
We also decreased the millage amount. Originally, we asked for 1.25. We sharpened our pencil for a flat replacement of 0.75 mil.
Any other questions or comments from council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next presentation is going to be Joshua Smith with the Butler County Finance Authority.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I am going to keep my presentation to just a few minutes, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at the end. Before I start, though, I would like to commend Councilperson Carter on your New Year's resolution/goal. I appreciate what you said, and I feel like if more people would have a simple resolution/goal like that, we'd be living in a much better world. But thank you for saying that at the beginning. So the Butler County Finance Authority, in prior years, you may have recognized it as the Butler County Port Authority. It was established actually 21 years ago. A lot of people would not know that because I feel like the organization in its history has been a very reactive versus a proactive organization. I was hired in April of 2024 after serving as the Hamilton City Manager for about 13 and a half years to take over the organization. And in the first 9 months in that role, I've worked very hard to make the organization that was actually a benefit to the member communities of Butler County. So on the screen is the first of my 4 slides, which is our one-page vision, mission, value statement. And I'll just talk about the vision just very briefly. It is to achieve economic resilience. And when I think about economic resilience in Butler County, I mean, Hamilton and Middletown are literally the poster children for that. 2 of the strongest communities economically in the county for many decades, probably over a century. Post-World War II, a lot of things started changing for a lot of industrial cities, not just Hamilton and Middletown. And the challenges that both communities face today is because no one had a crystal ball 30, 40, 50 years ago to adjust to what was happening in the local economies. A lot of what I think about is how do we create tools, how do we create plans, how do we create systems to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. I mean, I've had conversations with Westchester Township as an example. It is clear to me that they've built a lot of retail boxes and that the nature of retail is changing, and what happened to Hamilton and Middletown post-World War II could happen to Westchester very quickly. So thinking about how you become resilient. So that is the vision of the organization. I'm a big believer in keeping strategic planning simple. On the screen is our one-page objective goals, strategies, and measures. This is something that I actually stole when I was still a city manager in Wisconsin from Procter & Gamble because I liked the way that they simplified it and the way that every goal had a numeric component to it and every measure had a numeric component to it. Too many times strategic planning is too vague and simply I want to improve this. But what does improvement actually look like? How do you actually tangibly show if you're making progress or not? I can count the number of jobs that are created. I can count the number of new investment that has come in. And on the measure side, as an example, on an annual basis, you can have a report card on how you're performing. At the end of the day, the goal, which all the goals on the left-hand side, 1, 2, and 3 are 10-year goals. I truly believe that they're all easily attainable and that we should far exceed those numbers. But again, I just wanted to give City Council an opportunity to have a copy of our one-page strategic plan. What other activities are being performed currently by the Butler County Finance Authority? 3 things in particular. One of them is we've created a committee of 17. It was interesting to me, being somewhat pigeonholed in Hamilton for most of my time in Butler County. When I got to the broader stage of Butler County, there wasn't a business group that was meeting on a regular basis to talk about issues that transcended any single community. So we created a committee of 17, identified the 5 largest companies by employment, but also other large employers. As an example, I think Frost Brown Todd has the largest law firm in Butler County. Liberty Center is the largest retail development in Butler County. We grabbed the biggest of these employers, brought them together for a meeting in October. We have a follow-up meeting in April. And it just provides an opportunity to hear directly from the largest employers. Again, going back to that economic resiliency, simply put, Butler County does not want to be caught flat-footed and have one of the 5 largest companies, be it Cleveland Cliffs, Cincinnati Financial, or any of them, announce that they're leaving the county and no one was even in contact with them. This is an opportunity to be in front of them and to understand what they're seeing in terms of trends and also understand, what the county can be doing that would be of benefit to them. Another activity is the Innovation Strategic Working Group. When you look at the history of Butler County, a lot of it was built on innovative companies. AK Steel, Champion Paper, Beckett Paper. Over the years, these companies that were essentially startups are the companies that fueled decades and decades of families, paid family mortgages, put families' kids through college, were these companies. How do we sort of reclaim that innovative spirit in Butler County. That is the purpose of this Innovation Strategic Working Group. And finally, something that I never thought a lot about until I moved over to my current role was we have 3 airports in Butler County, but after visiting all 3 of them and talking to them, it became clear that the 3 of them were not maybe talking a lot, were not coordinating. They're certainly economic development assets. In particular, Middletown and the Oxford Airport, which is owned by Miami University, have a lot of adjacent land to them that are ripe for development opportunities. So we put together an airport strategic working group that also includes Butler Tech. And we're in the process right now of working with Woolpert to create a strategic plan specifically for the 3 airports to maximize the assets that already exist. Finally, just quickly, I want to touch on some of the products and services that our organization will provide. We're in the process of standing up what is called a Jobs and Investment Bond Fund. I'll just give you a real-world example. I was at a meeting yesterday with 80 Acres in Hamilton, and just talking through some of their different developments, some of the developments they're working on outside of Ohio, including in Kentucky and Georgia. And I was surprised when they were mentioning some of like the federal loan programs that they've tapped into, the interest rates that they're paying. It's very high. The Jobs and Investment Bond Fund is being created because just from my experience in Hamilton, the hardest thing to do in Hamilton was to identify capital for projects that had a hard time getting off the ground. In particular, in the historic part of Hamilton where you had a Champion Mill property, or which is now Spooky Nook, or the former Beckett Paper property that's still not been developed. Identifying those capital gaps that exist and getting them low-cost capital so they can actually move a project forward is very important. The city of Hamilton saw the value in this. They've invested, or in the process of investing $1 million into this Jobs and Development Bond Fund. I'll be speaking with Butler County later this month. I have conversations with the Hamilton Community Foundation. I want to get the bond fund. It will be up and running. We've already created the policies and procedures for it sometime probably late spring. But this will be, in my mind, a very invaluable asset to any developer in Butler County that's looking to obtain capital that's affordable. We're in the process of creating what's called the Resilience Revolving Loan Fund. It's called Resilience because we are looking to restrict this to qualified census tract areas, which are the hardest areas to develop. These are the federally qualified census tract areas that are considered low to moderate income areas. You'll see that it says it's first loss gap financing. The reason it's first loss, it is something to incentivize a typical financial institution like a bank to come in and provide a loan, understanding that if there is a loss, our money will be the first to lose. It is not their money. So this is a way to get the traditional banks into the low to moderate income areas so we can start getting capital to those areas. The Ignite Butler Grant Program is a matching pre-development grant program to incentivize communities to get real estate ready for development. Again, pulling from my experience in Hamilton, there was a lot of times where, as an example, you might have had a property that had environmental challenges, and you had a developer that needed a certain amount of acreage, and they might have been interested, but since no one had investigated the property or had a phase 1 or phase 2 environmental completed yet, the time period was such that they couldn't wait for that to happen, and they would move on from that property. This grant program is to encourage communities to get a lot of the pre-development work done, so if you have an opportunity, you can move quickly versus have to wait for that type of activity to take place. Traditional development services. I was a city manager for 23 years. I've been in city government prior to leaving for 25 years. Frankly, I love this type of work. I love developments. I love industrial cities. And every time I drive into Middletown, all I see are opportunities. And I truly believe that, I will work anywhere in Butler County, but the Hamilton and the Middletowns of the world are really where a lot of that work, in my mind, will take place. Finally, the last thing is conduit financing. You may not even be aware of this, but we were the conduit financer for the YMCA. So the your project on the east side of Middletown, I think it was a $3 million, it wasn't a pool, but what was it?
Aquatic Center.
Aquatic Center. They rolled that into a larger financing package that we did for them at $10.8 million. But But again, I wanted to keep my comments brief. I'm sure that on a cold, snowy January evening, you have better things to do. Listen to me, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. Any questions or comments from council?
I have a couple. So, how do you balance having Middletown, Hamilton, Fairfield, and Oxford in your county, which has a lot of older properties, development opportunities, versus probably one of the largest townships in Ohio, and then soon to be the next largest township being Liberty Township and Westchester Township, because they're never going to be a city. They figured out the way to work that out. But how do you balance that? Because all their development is going to be new, and it's easier to do new versus coming in and say, okay, we have this 10 acres of this old manufacturing, whatever it was. So how does that work with your group?
Good question. So as an example, we had a board meeting last month, and we had 3 capital leases that were on that. One was in Westchester. It was for a Whole Foods. One of them was for an Alnire logistics development in the city of Fairfield, and one was for an industrial project in Hamilton called Coolants Plus. So we did capital leases for all 3 of those. My sense on the township side, you'll see a lot of capital leases where we can exempt sales tax, something that I know that your Port Authority has done on projects. The work that I would say in the other work in the township is I've been talking to Caroline McKinney about the Milliken Road interchange and how I can be helpful in that role. Hamilton and Middletown in particular, a lot of, and obviously you also have part of your municipality in Warren County, so you already have the Warren County Port Authority that works on the Warren County side, which is probably more of the newer developments. The Butler County side would be more similar to what I've worked on in Hamilton, which is a lot of the historic adaptive reuse type development. And that is where I would see spending a lot of time if the city of Middletown wanted my Port Authority involved with Middletown. Frankly, I'm happy to help anywhere there's a need, and I think I've articulated that to all the different communities that I've talked to in Butler County. I don't even care if it's in Warren County. I understand that the Warren County Port will handle all the financing, handle all that. I'm just happy to, if they just need a sounding board, someone to talk through a development agreement, a development project, scope of services, anything, I just want to be an asset.
Yeah, I'm really very excited about our opportunity here with the Butler County Finance Authority. I know with Joshua's experience in Hamilton and everything that's been done in Hamilton, and your willingness to bring this to the greater part of Butler County, and especially Middletown. I mean, if you look at Middletown, we have a tremendous amount of opportunity for development. And I think with our current economic development department, which is very good, I think their opportunity to be able to lean on the Butler County Finance Authority would be tremendous. I think this would be nothing but beneficial for the city of Middletown. And if my colleagues are in agreement to it, I would like to see our staff start to work over the next month and bring back to us in February, one of the 2 meetings in February, based on a timeline you can put together what this partnership with the Butler County Finance Authority would look like, what it would entail from an organizational end, how it fits in with the Middletown Port Authority. We do work with the Warren County Port Authority, how it would look financially, how it would look organizationally, but I think there is nothing but total benefit for us to begin a partnership with the Butler County Finance Authority.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there's a couple key points on here that stick out to me. I mean, first, the job and investment bond fund. I mean, that's crucial. I mean, even in my professional space, when we see whether it's fees or other things that employers go through, if there are other ways, especially through Butler County Finance, that we can cut a lot of that red tape, excess costs out. And then the second point specifically here is a resilience revolving loan fund. Here in Middletown, we've been looking at many ways to assist and help our census tracts. And this is something right here I think would really incentivize, like you said, traditional banks to come in and say, okay, we're going to loan this family, you know, X amount of money on this property, and, you know, let's say, for example, you know, they default, the bank isn't facing the risk. It's Butler County Finance Authority. So with that first loss gap financing. So, you know, I would agree. I would think if, you know, if everybody likes this, I'd like to see us move forward with it.
Anybody else? I'm curious, just your recommendation would be to kind of put together a more in-depth kind of look at what this would look like for us if
My recommendation would be for staff to come up over the next month. Ms. Combs, if you think it's possible for the staff to look at it over the next month, to work with Joshua to put together what a partnership would look like.
so we could look at it and then make a choice and decision. And
Yeah, make a decision sometime in February at the first or second meeting.
Does that work for you, Ms. Combs?
Yes.
And does the rest of council, would you like to see that? I'd like to see some more information as well. Okay, yes, that sounds good. Anything else before we
Great.
leave?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Joshua.
Time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Final presentation tonight will be Scott Tadish with Public Works.
Well, thank you and good evening. In short, Public Works is responsible for the engineering, maintenance, repair, and improvement of all city infrastructure. So there are 13 divisions within Public Works, and I'll kind of run through each one. Oh, sorry. Thank you for getting me there. Kind of run through each one just to give you a snapshot of what we have, and then if you have any questions, just what we do, I should say, then just let me know. So Public Works Administration is responsible for the overall management of the department. Major functions include capital improvements planning and implementation, procurement of all city construction projects, including assisting other city departments. So that would be like for the firehouses or like the paper board. Not that we're managing the projects, but we do still have some involvement. We oversee prevailing wage requirements, grant administration, and compliance for all grants obtained for Public Works projects, managing implementation of the city's long-term control plan to reduce combined sewer overflows into the river, oversee all the Duke-owned street lighting, as well as procuring electric and gas for all city facilities. In addition, Public Works Administration manages the refuse collection and recycling contract with Rumpke. We also oversee the closed landfill to maintain regulatory compliance. Also responsible for approving permits for all special events, activities being held on public property. Let's see. The Engineering Division is responsible for design and construction of public improvements such as streets, bridges, traffic control devices, sidewalks, water distribution and sewer collection infrastructure. Other functions include development review, which is a big one, infrastructure record keeping, including the historic cemetery in town, right-of-way permits, floodplain management, and stormwater compliance. The Engineering Division also oversaw the street levy paving project that included repaving more than 200 lane miles of streets over a 3-year period. The Street Maintenance Division, who we talked about tonight, a popular group these days, they are responsible for maintaining the safe passage of approximately 650 lane miles of streets, plus all city-owned parking lots and alleys. This includes pothole patching, crack sealing, minor repaving, street signage, snow and ice removal. Just to put in perspective, 650 lane miles is about 42 million square feet of pavement. So we have a lot of asphalt in town, and that's a lot to maintain. To compare, Hamilton has about 550 lane miles, so we have 100 more lane miles than Hamilton, even though we're a slightly smaller city, and that's mostly due to that boulevard system where we have 2 to 3 lanes in each direction. Stormwater maintenance is responsible for the maintenance of the stormwater collection system, including 154 miles of storm sewer, thousands of catch basins, plus culverts and multiple stormwater pump stations. In addition, street sweeping all the major thoroughfares, collectors. The Parks and Grounds Division are responsible for maintenance and upkeep of all city parks, the historic Pioneer Cemetery, city building grounds, all road right-of-ways and medians. They assist with setup of all special events, both city-initiated and externally initiated. Parks assist with hanging lights for Light Up Middletown, setting up the Ring for Holiday Hoopla. They also oversee the contract mowing of the public right-of-ways, parks, and city-owned facilities. And they also manage park use agreements for youth sports group and pickleball. Oh, might go back. Sorry about that. Electronics maintenance is responsible for maintaining 100+ traffic signals in the city, all city-owned street lighting, airport lighting and navigational aids, and radio maintenance. Wastewater treatment, they operate and maintain the city's 26 million gallon treatment plant. On average, 16 million gallons of wastewater are treated daily with from residential, commercial, and industrial customers. The Sewer Maintenance Division is responsible for maintaining 234 miles of combined and sanitary sewers, all sewer manholes, and multiple sewer pump stations, plus street sweeping of all local streets and city-owned parking lots. Water treatment is responsible for treating and distributing safe drinking water that meets or exceeds EPA standards to all homes and businesses. Average daily production is around 12 million gallons with a plant capacity up to 20 million gallons. Water maintenance is responsible for maintaining 274 miles of water mains and related infrastructure, including valves and fire hydrants. Municipal Garage is responsible for purchasing and maintaining the entire city fleet, including all public safety vehicles, all public works vehicles, and buses. And last, building maintenance, as you know, is responsible for all the maintenance of the city building, parks buildings, the newly acquired Middletown Event Center, and the town mall. I have some numbers here. I'm not going to run, since we've been talking a lot of numbers already, I'm not going to run through these one at a time, but just take a look, and obviously if you have any questions now or afterwards, let me know. We'll note here, we spent about 2,200 hours on special events, and these are from 2023, actually. I don't have all the updated numbers for 2024, but the amount of time we were spending on special event is continuing to increase, and I'm certain that'll be quite a bit more for 2024 when we get the final numbers in, and then probably even more for 2025. Again, just some more numbers. I'll note in 2023, we used about 3,100 tons of salt during like 12 snow events, I believe. Some of the current large projects going on, I think most of these you're somewhat familiar with, but we have the CSO Basin project across the street scheduled to be operational by the end of this year, with the park improvements above to be completed in 2026. The recently awarded project to construct a 2 million gallon water tower next to the existing Manchester water tower. That should be starting soon. We have the recently awarded filter backwash project at the water treatment plant to help reduce overflows on the Lime Lagoon that are affecting the airport. Engineering staff is managing the construction of Renaissance Point Phase 1 public infrastructure, plus the sanitary sewer project that's going on that they just started out on the North Union Road area. And finally, we have multiple paving projects scheduled for 2025 and beyond, in addition to more roadway striping. I noticed our projects list on the website is way out of date. I'll work with Clayton and IT to get that updated soon, so we get that information out to the public. I know I touched on this a little bit already, but here's a snapshot of some of the various special event permits issued by Public Works. In 2024, we issued more than 70 permits, many of those for multi-day or ongoing events. Finally, Public Works participates in several events and activities throughout the year. This includes the Independence Day celebration at Smith Park that's managed by Nicole Clark in my office. We had the Water Reclamation Open House this past October. And we have multiple touch a truck events, a number of those for the school throughout the year. That's it in a nutshell. Obviously, we do a lot a wide variety of functions that affect the citizens every day. Most of it goes unnoticed until something goes wrong.
Nothing goes wrong. No water main breaks.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or.
Thank you, Mr. Tadich.
One question.
Oh, yes, Mr. Lally.
I'm sorry. I apologize. The street levy that we passed,
Yes,
that was a 10-year levy?
yes.
So we did, of those streets, all the streets we did, how long does that last? I'm just curious what it's going to take.
We would hope to get 15 years,
Oh, really, that long? Okay,
12 to 15. So,
it's good to know.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Tadich? Excellent information. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes city manager reports.
Thank you, Ms. Combs. The next item on our agenda this evening is the consent agenda. While the consent agenda is generally for consensus items, do any council members wish to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening and move it to an motion agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will continue. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
It has been properly moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Skank, would you please read the consent agenda for us this evening?
Sure. For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the City Council minutes of December 3rd, 2024. To receive and file the Board and Commission minutes of the Planning Commission, November 13th, 2024, and the Library Board of November 20th, 2024. To confirm the appointments of John Deaton to the position of Water Reclamation Assistant Manager in the Public Works Department, Division of Water Reclamation, and of Andres Eddy to the position of Water Treatment Assistant Manager in the Public Works Department, Division of Water Treatment.
Thank you, and it's already been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
And can you tell me again who moved?
Mr. West
Sorry.
moved, and I believe Mr. Lally seconded.
All right, great, thank
Or
you.
Carter, they tied.
One of us.
All right.
All right, is there any discussion? There is no discussion. Let's go ahead and vote. Mrs. Skank, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Lally.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. The next item on the legislation this evening is our legislation. We have 5 items this evening. Law Director, Mr. Ben Yoder, the legislation, please.
Sure. First item is ordinance number 2024-102. It's an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Central Square Technologies, LLC for software for the Public Safety Department and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Ms. Combs, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Mayor, City Council, this is the Public Safety Department software was updated last in 2016 when they acquired the Authority Safety Suite from Civica CMI. Since then, Civica CMI has provided insufficient maintenance, resulting in minimal updates and new features to improve staff productivity. Their limited support hours from 8 to 5 are in contrast to Central Square's 24/7 assistance, which offers immediate help. Effective communication is crucial for the police department's success. Many regional agencies use Central Square, enabling seamless information sharing that can streamline investigations and improve operational efficiency. The initial cost, including the first-year subscription, is $381,264.51. The subscription cost for the second year will be $196,147, with a 5% annual increase thereafter. Funding for the purchase and installation has been approved as a part of the 2025 budget. The annual reoccurring cost for the project, offset by our current expenses, is $73,314.04, will result in a net increase of $107,744.92 in the first year. The implementation of Central Square solution involves initial costs that cover both the necessary hardware and software, including production and backup systems maintained by Central Square. The software suite consists of essential applications such as computer-aided dispatch, personnel management, records management, jail management, and mobile devices, along with GIS, AVL mapping, and online reporting tools. The costs also encompass data conversion, external interface implementation, and staff training. Pricing research conducted by the Southwest Ohio CAD users group meeting indicated that the proposed costs are competitive and aligned with the pricing structures of similar municipalities. These costs were negotiated directly with Central Square, the sole provider of the application, ensuring the project scope met the needs of the divisions involved with the securing of the substantial discount. A sole source bid was necessary because Central Square can supply this specific product with no resellers available to lower these costs. Overall, the features that allow for better coordination among agencies, increased efficiency for staff, enhanced transparency for the public. The Central Square solution is poised to transform operations for both fire and the police departments.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? No. I'll just say that it is an increase, of course, in finances for us, but because it was not, we didn't have anything sufficient. This is life and death. I think this is a very good move for the city. Thank you so much for that explanation. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Mr. Yoder, the next legislative item, please.
Second item is resolution number R 2024-37, a resolution authorizing the filing of applications for state fiscal year 2026 with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants under the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program. This is a second reading.
Thank you. Mrs. Combs, the staff report, please.
Mayor, City Council, each year the city applies for grants from the federal government and the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, to fund transit operations through Butler County Regional Transit Authority, BCRTA. This legislation authorizes the city manager to submit grant applications for the upcoming fiscal year. The city's transit operations depend heavily on these grants from the Federal Department of Transportation to cover operational and capital cost. ODOT requires annual legislation to empower staff to submit funding applications, which this proposal fulfills the 2026 fiscal year. Since the transit operations and capital costs rely mostly on grant funding, this authorization is important for maintaining Middletown's transit services.
Thank you, Ms. Combs. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Yeses have it, and legislation passes. Mr. Yoder, the next item, please.
Third item is ordinance number O 2025-01, an ordinance determining to proceed with submitting the question of a replacement tax levy for the benefit of the Midpoint Library District and declaring an emergency. No actions requested until the January 21, 2025 meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. Ms. Combs, the staff report, please.
I have nothing to add following the Midpoint Library presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. As this is a second reading emergency, there is no action to take at this time. However, is there any discussion from council? Hearing none, we will proceed. Mr. Yoder, the next item, please.
Item number 4 is ordinance number O 2025-02, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for 4 parcels at 2402 Central Avenue from R4, which is attached residential district, to PD, Planned Development District, and approving a preliminary development plan for the towns of Lincoln Village. This is a first reading.
Thank you. Ms. Combs, the staff report, please.
I have nothing further to add than what was already presented at the previous council meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Combs. Is there a I'm sorry, excuse me. As this is a first reading, there is no action to be taken at this time. However, is there any discussion from council? Okay, hearing none, we will proceed. Mr. Yoder, the last item, please.
Sure. The fifth and final item is ordinance number O 2025-03, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the rehabilitation of bridge-sized triple culverts that carry the hydraulic canal under Carmody Boulevard and the adjacent bike path. Again, a first reading.
Thank you. Ms. Combs, the staff report, please.
Mayor, City Council, this legislation authorizes the city manager to enter into agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the rehabilitation of the bridge-sized triple corrugated metal culvert that carries the hydraulic canal beneath Carmody Boulevard, adjacent to the Great Miami River Trail. ODOT will rehabilitate 3 large corrugated metal pipes, each measuring 12.5 feet in diameter, located on State Route 122 and Carmody Boulevard. These pipes facilitate the flow of the hydraulic canal next to the Great Miami River Trail. Importantly, during construction, traffic will be maintained with no detours or closures. The rehabilitation project entails general roadway maintenance, including the repair of asphalt and guardrails. The process involves inserting slightly smaller liner pipes into the existing pipes and filling that space between them with grout-like material. Construction is scheduled to take place from April 1st, 2026 to October 1st, 2027, according to ODOT's current timeline. ODOT is responsible for maintaining the pipes as they are considered a bridge on the state route. This rehabilitation is crucial to ensuring the integrity of the pipes and the roadway above them and is expected to provide a lifespan of 40 years. ODOT will cover 100% of the rehabilitation costs.
Excellent. Thank you very much. As this is a first reading, there is no action to be taken at this time. However, is there any discussion from council? All right, seeing none, this concludes the legislation for the evening. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Do any council members have anything they would like to bring up under unfinished business?
Yes.
Mr. Horn.
Multiples. Mentioned it at least a meeting or two ago. Has the city contacted J.D. Vance's family about a potential memorial at Miami Park?
I am not sure, but I can confirm that.
Okay. I like to at least have the question asked. Like I said before, they might say no or might say okay, and then they would have input on that. The next thing is EV chargers. Where are we at on that?
Met with ODOT right before Christmas. I think we just approved the agreement to the last meeting, working on getting that executed. We're going to have to get a consultant on board to help us bid and procure that. Now, that's federal funding, so there are a lot of stages of review. So it'll likely be most of this year on the design and review process, with installation more likely being end of this year into next year.
I just wanted an update.
Yep.
I haven't heard anything for a while.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Matt. The next one is the winter newsletter. Is that coming out anytime?
My understanding, it will be in mailboxes within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And then the last, the event center, or the Middletown Event Center, I guess it's called. Have you contacted an HVAC engineering firm to see what size tonnage we're supposed to have with air handlers?
The update I have from Scott is we have received a proposal from a mechanical engineering consultant to assess the required air handler size and prepare plans and specific for bidding as requested by City Council. The proposal has been submitted to the Law Department for review and approval. The cost and design services is $19,000 and it is estimated to take approximately 2 months to complete the design package before we can proceed with bidding.
Okay. So once legal does it, you can proceed because it's under $100,000. Mm-hmm. Please do. That's all I got.
Excellent. Anyone else for unfinished business on council? No. One thing, I was wondering if do we have an update for how the strategic planning session is coming, or any reminders that you'd like to give?
So the survey closed yesterday at noon. So I'm currently compiling those survey results, and I'll probably get them to you this Friday. And I'll be getting those also to the senior staff who are currently working on their presentations. But they do know what was in the survey to kind of have an idea of what they should be preparing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Did we make a decision on if we would have a facilitator there or not? Did we make a decision concerning that?
We have not made a final decision.
So that's still open?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I know that a couple of council people wanted to discuss that.
We can discuss that if you wish, to see if you'd like to have a facilitator. Okay, sure. What are any thoughts about having a facilitator at the strategic planning session?
So I guess I have a couple thoughts on it. I understand, when we say we're going to have a strategic planning session, and I'm kind of responsible for calling it a strategic planning session, but I really, to be honest with you, don't think it's a strategic planning session. It's more like a council work session on giving staff guidance on what to prioritize for the year. Honestly, a strategic planning session really involves bringing in a consultant, and it's weeks and months of determining what the strategic direction of a department or an organization should go. And I just don't see that as what this is on that Saturday. And therefore, I really don't see a need to have a facilitator. I honestly believe that we have 2 city administrators that we pay a fairly modest salary that could handle running this work session, where basically as council members, we essentially direct staff on what we think they should prioritize during the year. And in that nature, I don't see us needing a facilitator. If we were going to do a more strategic planning that took weeks and months, like we did in the fire department, like we did in the police department, then okay, I could see the use of a facilitator, but I don't see the need to pay somebody to come in and be a facilitator on that day when we have staff who can handle it. And that's my opinion.
Any other
I would agree with that. I think it's an opportunity for Ms. Combs to set the meeting, and that was my take last year. Is really we're trying to pick priorities. Strategic planning session, not necessarily, but.
Okay. And maybe that's something that we could talk about at another time, a strategic planning session, for
Yeah,
example.
if we're going to do something where we want it to be like a true strategic planning, where this is going to be a thing where we look at long range, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Once again, I bring up what Councilmember Horn said at a couple meetings, that we need to look at where we're going to be in 3 years, 5 years. That's what's important. And that's when I totally agree with you that we need a facilitator or a consultant to guide us in that.
So we changed the title of what it is. It's not a strategic planning meeting any
Once
longer.
again, that was just my assessment on what truly my experience has been, what strategic planning is versus what this Saturday in January has traditionally been, over 4 to 6 hours of council giving staff direction on what we see as priorities. So yeah, that's really how I saw it.
Any other comments? Questions? Anything you'd like to say? No? Okay, so, go ahead. No, all right. So at this point, I tend to agree. I think that if we are going to have, I can see why anytime you could have a facilitator, that's always helpful. And at the same time, this is your meeting as well. Do you have any thoughts about it for yourself?
My thought was, next year that we should be doing that and planning well in advance, that we would start looking at what we want to do probably in the summer and preparing if we're going to have a facilitator and what that long-range goal and plan is going to look like.
Okay, so for this meeting on January the 25th, would it work not to have a facilitator as such and just to have that conversation at another time? Sounds like we have consensus. Ms. Carter? Okay, that's the consensus of council. Any other items under unfinished business? Hearing none, we will proceed. The next item on the agenda is new business. Do any council members have any new business this evening?
Mayor, I have one.
Yes, sir.
So in a couple recent council meetings, I brought up, sort of the city's involvement, newer involvement into local organizations that benefit, kids around the city. Most recent one was obviously the band traveling out to the inauguration, and the city stepped forward and made a donation to help cover some of those costs. And by doing that, uncovered that there is an actual 501c3 nonprofit organization here in town that I've spoke about a couple of times. And basically, they work with the Middletown City Schools. It's not just the band, orchestra. They travel quite a bit. There's quite a bit of costs associated with it. I see Sarah Allen is here tonight, and I spoke with her several times on the phone. And it's kind of it's exciting. It's a little heartbreaking to hear some of the stories, but it's exciting. But basically, Middletown Musical Arts Club, they help a lot of kids. They do a lot of fundraising. There's a lot of kids that have opportunities, for example, to go to Disney and play, right? march into parades, things like that. And there's a lot of kids here in town that, haven't been out of the state, let alone on an airplane. And so they work diligently to fundraise. And they decided, several years ago to stand up, an actual 501c3, so that way, whether it's businesses or residents that donate get the tax write-off, but they can also carry over some of their unspent costs. And was speaking with Sarah recently, I really feel that if everybody is in agreement, I'd like to call a motion that we make the same contribution to them as we did to the band. They have some upcoming travel and expenses, and kind of looking at the impact that it has on these children. You never know, their first trip on a plane, or their first trip to go showcase their talents in other areas of the country outside of Middletown could really be life-changing. It could be an opportunity for them, to look at it in a completely new perspective. So, it's something I've spoke about the last couple meetings, and I really feel like, I'd like to call a motion that we would make the same contribution to the MMAC as we did to the Middletown Marching Band.
So this is the Middletown Musical Arts Club.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So we can go ahead and do that. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So there's been a motion to donate $10,000 this year, 2025, to the MMAC, the Middletown Musical Arts Club. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Gank, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter?
I'm sorry. What am I voting on? I'm sorry. For some reason that slipped past me.
A $10,000 donation to the Middletown Musical Arts Club. It's a mirror donation to what City Council passed to give to the Middletown High School Marching Band. This is what Mr. West just put on the floor.
We can go back to discussion if we need to. Yes. Would you like to discuss or ask any questions?
Yeah. So, is this the standard procedure that we donate $10,000 to agencies or nonprofits? Is that the standard procedure?
Yes, it has been over the last several years. Essentially, we have organizations that have come to the city for assistance on various projects. DMI was one that we did just the last council meeting, and over the years we've had several of them. Generally what we do is always, staff has essentially vetted those organizations to, a lot of times staff will bring the recommendations to council on organizations they have vetted and what their need and the essentially what effect and benefit they've had to the city of Middletown. Ms. Combs, I think you also met with Ms. Allen on this.
I did. Yes.
And would this be staff's recommendation?
Yes, it would.
Also, this is one of the things we talked about the last meeting as well, is kind of like how much we'd be looking at maybe during the meeting that's coming up on the 25th, which we're calling the strategic planning session, what we'd be looking at for nonprofits. This year we're kind of set for 2025, but maybe looking at the future of 2026, like how much we'd like to give per year. Perhaps there might be some guidelines on how organizations can ask of us. But one of the reasons why last meeting I wanted to keep our contribution to DMI at $50,000 was for something like this, like things that come up during the year. So we know we have $50,000 going to DMI, about $25,000 to Very Merry Middletown, and then now this $10,000 can go to MMAC. I think we'll be having further discussion perhaps at the strategic planning session as well. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? And we have the vote on the floor. Can we proceed with the roll?
Sure. Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes.
Motion, the yeses have it, the motion passes. Thank you. Does any council member have any more new business they would like to announce? Hearing none, we will proceed. Our next item on the agenda is executive session. Do I hear a motion to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and under the authority of ORC 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage, and under the authority of ORC 121.22G4, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to move to executive session. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Council will now, the yeses have it, and council will now move to executive session. On, if you wish. Okay. Do we have a motion to return to open session?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to return to open session. We will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes. The motion passes. The next item on our agenda is boards and commissions appointments. Airport Commission has 4 positions available and 2 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint Jeffrey Hensley and James Watson to Airport Commission?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. Lawley.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Middletown Board of Health and Environment has one position available and 3 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint Tiffany Baggett to Middletown Board of Health and Environment?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Lawley,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Historic Commission has 4 positions available and 4 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint Matthew Dixon, Andy Brickler, and Stephen Stein to Historic Commission?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Lawley,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn.
Yes.
The motion passes. The Library Board has 1 position open and 2 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint Eleanor Stewart to the Library Board?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Lawley,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka.
Yes. The yeses have it, and the motion passes. The Cemetery Board has 2 positions open and 2 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint Ken Blanford and Rick Lawson to the Cemetery Board?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Lawley.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. The Park Board has 1 position available and 5 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint Steve Lewis to the Park Board?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded. That's fine. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. Lawley.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Planning Commission has 2 positions available and 5 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint A.J. Mentel and Gabriel Schonlein to the Planning Commission?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Lawley,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. The Board of Zoning Appeals has 4 positions available and 3 people have applied. Is there a motion to appoint David Cash and Thomas Evans to the Board of Zoning Appeals?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Lawley,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. The City Income Tax Review Board has 1 position available and 1 person has applied. Is there a motion to appoint Michael Bonney to the City Income Tax Review Board?
Motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Lawley,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka.
Yes. The yeses have it, and the motion passes. This concludes our boards and commissions appointments. This now concludes our regular City Council meeting for Middletown, Ohio, Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. At 8:16 p.m., this meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, at 5:30 p.m. in these chambers for our next regular City Council meeting. Thank you and good night.
Okay, do you have a lot to sign?